All right. I actually had a thing that said hit record.
Gotta have those reminders.
Hi. Welcome to Rep Your State of Mind on YouTube. And here we are, Michelle Crawford. I'm your host. I'd like to welcome you to the Rep Your State of Mind podcast. And today we have some amazing guests. So help me in welcoming Dr. Demetria Bates and Jabria Craft, the team behind the CannaQueerious podcast. Woo! Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I see you are wearing some amazing shirts. So, first off, we just want to rep our pride a little bit, don't we, ladies? Yes.
Yes, we love it.
Love it.
You look amazing. I was a little bit touched earlier before we started recording because this is one of the very first times I'm having people on the podcast who are wearing my gear. But it was just like a little bit teary. I'm so excited to be able to do this and to help everybody, advocate in their state, express your lifestyle, our love for the plant, and our love for LGBTQ plus lifestyles everywhere, not just here in California where I live, but where you guys live. And on that note, let's find out a little bit more about you guys. How about Jabria? Let's start with you.
Yeah, so my name is Jabria Craft, otherwise known as That Dope Coach. I am a cannabis coach, so I help people integrate cannabis as part of their wellness routine. I help them connect with the plant intentionally by educating them and getting them really confident in their use of cannabis. So I started my cannabis journey actually out of grief, but it wasn't really until 2020 that I started using it on a day-to-day basis. And so 2020, that was COVID. There was a lot of stuff going on in the world, very isolated, but my mom was actually really sick at that time. And so I was her full-time caretaker from January through her passing in June. But I started using every day as kind of like a coping mechanism, even prior to her passing. And then once she was gone, it was, I was a chimney all day, every day, which it got me through that, right? Like, I don't want to demonize that time. I give myself compassion and grace for the rate that I was using, but it wasn't necessarily serving me. And so in August of that year, I started seeing a therapist, and we had a conversation around how is this helping you versus how is it potentially harming you or pulling you away from the progress you want to make. And so getting that self-awareness really built into it, I was able to see how cannabis was really helping me not only connect with myself and ground myself, but it took the constant downpour of grief and emotions and all of the stuff that I was dealing with and turned it into something I could sit with. So it was like, I equate it to, not on cannabis, or like just like living life was constant downpour versus when I was using cannabis, it was like clouds that were passing, and some of them are raining, some of them had thunder and lightning, but it was much easier to like sit with. So that really, like, having that perspective of like, okay, this is how it's helping me. Now let me use it more intentionally. So I started doing meditation and yoga and journaling and all these other self-care and introspective activities that I started coupling with cannabis. And then I was like, okay, what's going on in my body? I started getting really curious. I went to Google, and that was a hot mess. It was just a lot of contradictory statements. Like, one site's like, cannabis will fix everything and you'll live to your 150. And then the next site is like, it's the devil's lettuce. Trying to find super clear info was a challenge. And so I started finding more info, getting some books. I found CCI, and that was pretty much the beginning of where I am right now. It got me all the education, it got me comfortable with talking about it with people, but also helped me learn more about my relationship with the plant and my relationship with myself. And CCI really kind of blew the lid up on a lot of things in the best way possible now.
I feel like as we move through whatever my season is going to be, CCI is going to be like an unofficial sponsor of the show by the time we're done with it. And speaking of all that, we have someone here who has all the heart and all the science, and her name is Dr. Demetria Bates. Let's tell the world a little bit more about you, please.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. D, the CannaQueerious NP. So yeah, cannabis. I came to cannabis late in life, I must say. That's because, growing up in childhood, it was always wrong being in the military. So yes, I'm an Army vet. It was wrong. And now as a nurse practitioner, it's never been taught to us. It's not in my nursing books, none of that. But what really made me come to cannabis was the height of the pandemic. I just kept seeing a lot of patients. I was prescribing a lot of opioids and Xanax and whatnot because people, one, we were isolated, we were in the house, there's not much you could do, so no physical activity at all. And then, of course, once again, sitting in that little four walls, your mind is constantly racing because you're isolated from social interaction. And there are people now who never experience anxiety, and then they have anxiety. And then there are people who have anxiety, and then their anxiety is worse. So I was like, it just has to be something better than me prescribing these medications. And then as far as the icing on the cake, where I was practicing at this time during the pandemic, it was a family was lived pretty close to me, and their child OD'd on opioids. And I was at home, I was looking out the window, you see an ambulance, you hope everybody's okay. That story will come back to me, and that person, they're actually my patient too. And it's like, dang, obviously, even with their history, I had to prescribe them at that time some pain medication because that was their regimen. But just knowing that restriction, that boundary of, do I do this? And then that client too is just more of, my son just passed away. They were like, I know, Dr. Bates, I know, I'm only going to take it just like this. I'm going to do that. It just kind of wore on me. I don't want to be a part of the problem that we're causing. There are people with pain, but opioids has its place in the acute sector. But as far as managing chronic pain, no, we have to definitely put a limit to that. And so during the pandemic, I ended up losing my job. The practice actually ended up closing. I was in a rural area. So just like anywhere else, rural places, most likely everything shut down.
Yes.
And so I created Bates Virtual Health and Consultants, where I do medical cannabis evaluations in Virginia. So anybody need medical cards, I definitely help out with that. I became like healer certified. And what else? Oh, CCI. That's the main thing. Before I did all of that, I did some research on cannabis because it did become legal in Virginia in July of like 2021. So I just added that to my services, and I looked up just cannabis education, and yeah, CCI popped up. And from there, that's all that's written. I'm glad I took the journey. I guess the universe was just pivoting me anyway, if I wanted to or not.
I have that to say, not just the universe, but also as all of us, we are high priestesses of the plant. And there is no doubt that it is guiding my flow and my choices in life. And so all three of us have ventured out and made cannabis not just a lifestyle, but also a living to a certain extent. And that is brave, smart, and helpful. I think that all of us seem to have this desire to learn more and be able to help more. As a healer, your special predicament, Dr. D, is a rough one, right? You're in such a position to do such great benefit to people's health, and you've invested so much of your heart into it that the system is not really working as much for the patients as you'd like to see, right? It's really difficult. Mm-hmm. Well, let's get back to like that one thing in common. Let's tell everyone our CCI story. How about we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So similar to Dr. Bates, when I was looking up Canna education, CCI was one of the things that came up, because I had also looked into some academic credential programs and things like that. But what I loved about CCI was the approach was very clear. They were very mission driven of, we are trying to educate as many people about the power of this plant, how to use it healthily, intentionally for wellness. And they seem to cover a really wide breadth of topics around cannabis science and how to use it in a way that serves people. So I started actually on the educator side of things, and then saw that they had the coaching option. And I was like, that seems like much more of my speed. It's a much more robust program. You had different mentors, more assignments, more touch points with the CCI team. And so I signed up for that. What I loved about the CCI program was the balance between the education, the true science behind it. We were, joined by the incredible Andrea Maharg. Her science knowledge is unbeatable, in my opinion. She is one of the best educators when it comes to canna science that I've ever seen. And so getting to not only have her wealth of info, but have access to her to ask questions and things like that. And then all of the assignments, we have amazing people like Michelle who are giving you true real-time feedback on what you're doing. And to see people who have done the program and see what they're doing out in the world, I can really make a career out of this. I already was sensing my path aligning with it. And so seeing it in action was just really phenomenal. And we met some amazing people. That's how Dr. D and I got connected. You know, I'll
That's what
let
I
her
was
talk
gonna
about that,
say.
but it was a 10 out of 10 experience, truly.
And that's how you guys got connected, which is a huge deal. Because as we're going to talk to everybody about later, you've done more work together, like since CCI and beyond, individually and together. Okay, so back to Dr. D. I need to know what you thought of the science and stuff from there.
I love the cannabis science portion. That's the part I love because I love research and all of that. So yeah, once again, shout out to Andrea for making all of that happen. But the main thing is when it came to CCI, I was always still trying to look for people that look like me in a sense, as far as representation is concerned, because that's what I was looking for. I was looking for someone that looked like me so maybe they could mentor me because sometimes things just show up differently for people of color or women of color or whatever. And so I saw Jabria as we're sitting there and we're in our little Zoom calls. And I was just scrolling through and I was like, oh, I need to reach out to her. I was like, okay, I see this. And so I did. I reached out to her. I learned that she was from Virginia. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I'm from Virginia, but living in North Carolina right now. But then she was like, I'm so excited that you reached out to me, but I just kind of need to hold off a little bit. Let's convene later on. I forgot how many months it was, but either way, like you said, she kind of had to take a step back. But when she did come back, it was still on like full force as far as just reaching back out to her, like, hey, how are you doing? And at this time, it was like, hey, let's start a podcast.
How did it start? Obviously, the two of you met at CCI. Months go by, you reconnect, it's so strong, and boom, suddenly we are getting the CannaQueerious podcast. Who wants to jump in? Dr. D, Dr. D, it's you.
I see the fingers.
Yeah, the fingers are
But
pointing.
I mean, with cannabis, I haven't been able to like quiet my mind down. You know, I usually was an anxious person, but when I did, you know, start touching the plant, I was able to just meditate and just start figuring out what it is I wanted to do. And the thing that kept coming up is that I need to talk. I need to talk. At that time, I wasn't listening to my conscious. I was like, okay, yeah, talk. But it's like, no, I'm not going to talk. I'm going to try to focus more on health coaching with the cannabis plant, just trying to educate more people about cannabis and offer these programs. But it just kept coming back like, no, you need to talk. And so I actually did a meditation as far as meeting my higher self. And what I saw was definitely very peaceful person talking. And what I could see, or as far as the vision is concerned, I was sitting more like a talk show, just two chairs. It was a big audience. I don't know where, you know, this place was, but it was a lot of people. And it was just up there, me up there talking. And I'm just like, okay, this is weird. At this point, I'm like, God, universe, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. I guess that's that critter brain starting to come in to protect me because I definitely have a lot of knowledge when it comes to cannabis, but also being able to integrate that into the medical side of things. Yeah. But still, I'm just like, no, you know, being shy about it. But then I finally came to and I was like, okay, enough of this. Let's do it. Oh. And then I was like, well, what am I going to call this? What am I going to talk about? What? Like I said, it just kept coming. So just being anxious and feeling stuck. But what happened was a friend reached out to me and she was like, I want you to come here and we're going to do a live Zoom. I said, okay. And so, you know, we did a live Zoom. It was like a Cannabis 101 interview style. Literally yes. 2 seats with the microphone in hand. And she asked me questions and I answered them. And then next thing I know, I was like, I could do this. I don't have to be here in this building. It's like, I could do this as well. Yeah. And so that's when I started getting on ChatGPT. I'm going to start a podcast. How do you start a podcast? Like podcast names. All that, you know, just spiraling, letting ChatGPT be my friend at this time. And yeah, CannaQueerious is really ChatGPT was my friend, and it helped me come up with the name. And I was like, this actually makes sense. It's actually encapsulating all of me, everything that I love, being queer and also in the cannabis space and a nurse practitioner. So hence Dr. D, the CannaQueerious NP, is where that kind of all came from. I mean, I know that was a pretty long story, but still, when you're so used to having a routine and doing the same things like over and over, and now it's time to pivot to do something that you're uncomfortable with, critter brain does step in and fear steps in. All these things stepped in. I don't know about that. I'll hold off and wait on that. No, I have to do this. And ever since then, with my meditation and everything, I just make sure that I remind myself that I am humbling myself so that I can serve others. And through my education, even if it is a coaching situation, even if it's just a one-on-one, whether it's a group, whether it's a conference, whether it's right now sitting here on this Zoom, I have to talk. And since I've been talking, I keep getting a lot of invitations to talk. But yeah, that's
You're a
just
conversation starter, that is for sure. So let's go back to Jabria and hear your side of this story. What happened when all of that came for you and was like, come with me. Let's go. How did it happen? Yeah.
So like she said, we had connected at first, and then my life was life. And so about 5 months later, we reconnected. But I had been thinking, because in that first conversation, we had talked about events and retreats and things that she was really interested in. And I was like, we are so aligned with everything that she was saying. And so I was excited to reconnect with her. She was ready with the podcast. Like, she was like, look, I have this idea. I think you'd be a good fit for it. Like, would you be interested? And when she explained it, that it was going to be cannabis and queerness and, Black women, Blackness, like all of that mixed into one space, I was like, those are all of my target audiences. It was just very clearly aligned. And we have a good rapport with one another that we've developed over the past, I can't believe it's only been 6 months. That's also mind blowing, because I feel like I've known her forever.
What year were you at CCI together?
I did 2023. It was just last year, because I didn't
last year. Yeah,
finish in August, I think, is when you finished, and then I didn't finish till January, so I was a little bit behind. But yeah, hearing about the topics of the podcast and like kind of her dreams about it, she told me like her story with coming up with it and like her vision for it. And again, it was just in complete alignment with like everything that I was working towards, all of the audiences that I really wanted to tap into. Part of my journey with cannabis and through grief and therapy has been really connecting with my authentic self and coming out and living out loud and proud. So like, to be able to showcase that, not only for my own healing journey, was super important, but then like as a representation piece, because we don't see a lot of Black women in cannabis. We definitely don't see a lot of Black queer women in cannabis, or even just like POC, right? Like any of those identities, like, to be able to act as representation and bring more people to the table around this conversation. It was truly a no-brainer for me. It was an immediate connection.
How's it been? What's the response been like on your different areas where you're pushing about it?
Oh, definitely. It's a new podcast. The goal is to try to get 500 downloads a week. Right now, we're at a total of 200 and I think 60 so far. So we're still working on it. And obviously, we have people listening in Australia, a lot of people in the United States, but it is starting to hit internationally now.
Where can people listen to it?
Where? Okay. That we're on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, if you want to actually watch us and see us. So yeah, the CannaQueerious podcast.
Find it everywhere that podcasts are streamed. There you go.
Add it to your morning rotation. We release every week. But next season, we're gearing up to have some great people come on. This season has been really about, let's tell people about cannabis, about ourselves. Let's really set the landscape. And next season, we're going to be getting into it with people who are in the industry as well. So definitely.
I probably should take notes, because I'm so new to like legitimate podcasting.
We're learning.
I'm in this effort to support Rep Your State of Mind with like a real legit podcast is sort of like a new little labor of love. I'm giving it all the love, and I'm having people on right away to celebrate things like Pride Month, for example. Jabria, I'm so excited to have the two of you here, CannaQueerious podcast, the CannaQueerious NP over there, that dope coach, wearing Rep Your State of Mind. It looks
I
so
love
good
this
on
shirt.
you.
I'm
Oh,
obsessed.
I was never one to wear rainbows. I was never one to get into all of that because I was just, I'm not going to say I'm in denial. I know, yes, I was gay, but at the same time, as far as being out and proud, it was like a no. So it's been hitting. So actually, as you've been probably following my IG story, and you're starting to see me actually say, hey, queer and we're here type situation, and seeing my wife and son out there a lot more. Literally, this is the year that I have stepped into being my most authentic self. So yes, I'm wearing
You
the
look
shirt.
so good doing it. And we're so proud.
Wait to walk out of here and walk the street or whatever, go to the grocery store, rep it in the state of North Carolina.
Rep it in North Carolina and rep it in Virginia, and I'm repping in California. How about you, Jabria?
I was thinking about it when I put it on. I don't think I have anything that visually combines both cannabis and queerness. Like, this is the first piece of clothing, merch, anything that I have that combine the both. That in and of itself, I think, is super powerful. So I'm super excited to be wearing this. I also love, like, it's size inclusive. I love that it fit. I love the material of it. To get into, I'm a little neurospicy, so some fabrics can be overstimulating, but this is quite a nice fabric. So I'm really happy about that for any of my other neurospicy friends out there who are curious. But no, it's really cool to be able to like be living out loud in a way where people can truly see it. Like that idea of like repping your state of mind visually is something that I've been much more into, again, because they're not having a ton of representation of the intersection between the cannabis and the queer community. And so to be able to rep them both at the same time is chef's kiss, truly.
Yes. This is the thing that kicked it off for me too. I started off with the I Leaf Your State design. This was my initial inspiration at Rep Your State of Mind. And I came out with 70 designs over the first weekend.
Oh, wow.
Every state in the US and every province and territory in Canada. And that was the first year of Rep Your State of Mind, was all about advocating in your state, right? And the Pride collection, what you two are wearing, is kind of like, I really had a breakthrough with it in terms of just for me and what Rep Your State of Mind can maybe do for people, is to give you that opportunity to express yourself in all these parts of your lifestyle that you love visually, immediately, without saying a word, start a conversation. This is what I'm hearing back from people. And I'm so excited. It gives me like chills. And people have loved the Pride design, like loved it. And I'm so
all
grateful
Pride things.
all the Pride things, like all of them need to be the Pride things. We have hoodies, we have a fanny pack that is so cute and so paradeable. Just saying, like, I'm a practical mom type. I love me a fanny pack, hands-free storage for me for all of my little things that I need. I need things, smokable things. And there's a hoodie to keep you warm. There's some. Everybody have a sesh. If I haven't said so yet before in this podcast, I invite you because we are friendly. There's also tank tops. There's a muscle tee and a V-neck. So yay! I went hog wild with Pride and just made so many pieces because I loved it. And I want everybody to rally around it and use it to express themselves. And I got to say, I don't know. I want to ask you two if you agree or not. There's some can be like a chip on your shoulder, like the fear, like you said, the critter brain of maybe wearing these rainbows and showing off your cannabis, lifestyle love and things like that. There can be like a fear or maybe like a little thing where you're expecting to be criticized or judged. But I got to say, as the proprietor and designer of Rep Your State of Mind, when I talk to customers, what I hear is it's bringing people together. And that's why I'm even more inspired to keep going, because instead of like a thing where people judge you, it turns out to be a conversation starter, a friend maker, and a way to bring like-minded people together and to rally around our movement, right?
It's interesting because similar to Dee, like I think there's a time even a couple years ago where I probably would not have been comfortable wearing this because it is so out loud, out proud in different ways. But it's been interesting as I've been going down this authenticity journey and being much more intentional with how I treat my body and how I live. It's allowed me to be in spaces where you're meeting more people that you're aligned with. And so being able to rep this and be like, okay, now we can connect. Like you know where I'm at. Let's figure out where you're at. And then we can see if we match. But it is almost kind of like this statement of like, you're either with me or you're maybe with me or you're not. And it's a lot clearer to get that understanding from someone.
Thank you. To know that my products, my designs are effective. I'm kind of practical. Like it has to work for me. You can have any black t-shirt that just does nothing, or you can say something, say it with
I'm truly imagining a pride float where it's all just this type of stuff.
That'd be great.
Amazing.
We're throwing pre-rolls. Okay, that's the way